What's up guys, my name is Ace, and yesterday we had the Season 2 Reloaded update in Call of Duty Vanguard, and since then I've stumbled across a handful of hidden changes that came in with this update that were not mentioned in the patch notes. Some of these changes appear to be unintentional, whereas others I believe were intentional, but they just failed to mention them in the patch notes themselves. And let's start it off with the first one. I'm very surprised they didn't mention this in the patch notes because I feel it would have been very well received from the community. The BAR with 50 BMG rounds has been nerfed. And what they've done here is they've just added a little bit of recoil. Now, it is worth mentioning, it's still a fairly accurate gun, especially for a full auto 50 BMG. But let's just have a look at the before and after. This right here is the recoil pattern before. You can see there is no horizontal recoil whatsoever, and it just kicks upward in a straight line. There's no big jumps between any of the shots either. It's just a nice, smooth upward recoil pattern. Now, post-patch, after yesterday's update, this is what the recoil pattern for the 50 BMG rounds look like on the BAR. So the total vertical magnitude of this is basically identical to pre-patch. It wasn't like they added a ridiculous amount of recoil, but what they have done here is they've added a little bit of horizontal recoil in there, so there's some side-to-side movement, although it's very minimal still. And more importantly, what they've done is the first 3 shots that you fire are going to be fairly accurate. They're going to be quite tight, but after those first 3 shots, then there's a pretty big jump to the 4th shot, and then another big jump until you get into your big grouping at the top of the recoil pattern. So post-patch, it's definitely a little bit worse, and it's going to be slightly harder to control, but at the end of the day, this is still a very accurate gun. Keep in mind, this recoil pattern is done with no other attachments equipped. If you stack this with attachments that help with your recoil, you should still be pretty pinpoint accurate with the 50 BMG BAR. And as a result, while I'm happy to see that they have made an adjustment here, I don't know if this was quite enough on the BAR. And more importantly, once I saw this, the first thing I went and tested after that was the Whitley with 50 BMG to see if they also added recoil on that. And unfortunately, it looks like there was no change whatsoever here, which is a little bit unfortunate since the Whitley has kind of taken over in a lot of ways. This gun with 50 BMG is definitely quite dominant, especially in the new arms race mode. It's ridiculous. Most of the other guns are killing significantly slower when you factor armor in, but the Whitley only takes like 1 extra bullet to kill, it seems like. So pretty frustrating to see no adjustment there, but again, it is nice to see a slight adjustment on the BAR at least. As for the next unmentioned change with this update from yesterday, the Baltic gunner is finally making some noise when it's in the air, and this is nice to see. Since they added it at the beginning of Season 2, it was literally silent for anybody on the ground, whether it's friendly or enemy, and the only real way of knowing if there is a Baltic gunner in the air is by watching the kill feed to see if people are dying to a Baltic gunner. So now they have added some audio. There's a bit of a hum the entire time that a gunship is in the air, even if it's not actively firing. And then also you can now hear the bullet impacts at least a little bit. But enough of me talking about it. Let's just have a listen so you guys can hear it for yourself.
Hostile flying fortress incoming!
So that's awesome to see that they got on top of that, and I don't remember seeing that anywhere in the patch notes as well. So there you go, now you know that that makes some noise. Now let's move on to the next thing, which I believe is completely unintentional and will hopefully be fixed in a hotfix in the near future. Unfortunately, the spy plane and counter spy plane's movement speed was reverted back to that previous speed where it was moving really quickly, and this made it very difficult to hit them with launchers. So my guess here is with this update, they just forgot to include that previous hotfix, which slowed them down significantly. And therefore, I do expect this will likely be fixed in the near future with a hotfix, and they will hopefully return to that much slower movement speed so that they're more reasonable to take out with launchers again. After that, there was also a hidden change to one of the perks, and this is the engineer perk. It actually got a hidden buff, and this is something we've been asking for quite some time. So again, I don't know why they didn't include this in the patch notes, because I think it would have been very well received. The engineer perk now counters the counter spy plane, meaning if an enemy calls a counter spy plane in and you're using engineer, it will no longer block out your minimap. And this is excellent news. That's exactly what I wanted to see with the engineer perk. And finally, we just have one more thing to address here, and this is the apparent sniper rifle buffs that were meant to go live several weeks ago, but for whatever reason, the aim down sight buffs just wouldn't apply to the Type 99 and the Car 98. With this Season 2 Reloaded update, according to the patch notes, they did finally get this pushed through, so it should be active in the game. However, a lot of people were noticing, if you look at the advanced stats in the gunsmith for these guns, for the Kar 98, it still shows an ADS time of 595 milliseconds, and with the Type 99, it now shows 433 milliseconds, which is faster than the previous aim down sight time, which is 498 milliseconds, but it's not as fast as the patch notes stated that it would be at 400 milliseconds. So that seemed really strange to a lot of people, but Sledgehammer did tweet that they've confirmed that the sniper rifle balance adjustments are live, and that it's just a UI issue where the stats that are being displayed in the gunsmith are not currently accurate. Now, of course, I did want to confirm this for myself, and unfortunately, it doesn't appear that this is accurate. I don't know exactly what they did to confirm whether or not this was live, but if you look at the frame by frames here, when it comes to the Kar 98, our aim down sight time shows 601 milliseconds. Of course, there is some frame rounding in there, so it is most likely 595 milliseconds, which is the pre-patch value. The post-patch value should be 500 milliseconds. And then with the Type 99, it does appear that the gunsmith is at least somewhat accurate, because our new aim down sight time currently is about 450 milliseconds, which is at least within one frame of the stated 433 milliseconds in the gunsmith. So that is within the margin of error there. So it appears the gunsmith is accurately displaying these values. But again, this shouldn't be 450 or 433 milliseconds. This one should be 400 milliseconds. And that is clearly not the case. So I really don't know what's going on with the code when it comes to these, because little weapon adjustments like this, like just adjusting an aim down sight time, for instance, should be an extremely basic and simple thing to do within a hotfix. And yet they've tried a hotfix as well as a title update, and they still can't seem to get these changes pushed through. So I don't know what's going on with this, but hopefully they can figure it out at some point in the near future. On that same topic of weird things going on with the code, we once again have an issue with suppressors not working properly with a new gun. This is a bug we've seen with the BAR as well as the KG M40, where if you use a suppressor, it doesn't sound like you're using a suppressor. The gun will sound as if it's unsuppressed. This is currently happening with the brand new SMG, the Armaguerra 43, and of course it is quite frustrating to see this persistent bug return time after time after time. Hopefully they can figure out the root cause of this issue so it doesn't continue to happen for the rest of the year. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for today's video of all the changes that I've noticed that weren't mentioned in the patch notes. Like I said, some of these I think are just unintentional bugs, and we'll likely see some fixes too shortly, especially that spy plane and counter spy plane movement speed. But for some of the other ones, like the change to the BAR and engineer, I'm just amazed they didn't include that in the patch notes. Now, of course, this is where I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you think of these hidden changes? And have you noticed any other potential hidden changes in the game? If so, please let me know down below, and I'd be happy to do some testing for you. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.